for many years, I've held that the achievement of diversity within a community is when it's a reflection of the greater community. So that smaller community has achieved or is demonstrating diversity when it is in proportion or percentage-wise the same groupings or demographics or complexion as the bigger community. So, the question is unity diverse? And I'm going to put up a slide that shows some demographics about Wilmington. Race, 73% white, 20% black, 6% Hispanic, 1% Asian, men to women, age, 18% less than 18, 67 are 18 to 65, and 15% are over 65. Now, I thought this was a retirement community, so I expected that number to be really huge. LGBT is somewhere between 5 and 10%, bisexual, 25%, mental health, 18% people in general experiencing some kind of mental health challenge, or 4% severe, and physical disabilities, 12 to 13%. So, look around. But look around, I'm asking you, without judgment. Just have an emergence of the art of noticing. Because this is Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday is the day we celebrate Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem. It's a day we celebrate his ministry and his teachings. It's a day we celebrate his greatest gifts to us, looking at people, looking at life with righteous judgment, with love, with forgiveness. It's not about condemnation. It's not about thinking we're coming up short. It's just an observation. So, look around again, and looking with righteous judgment, what do you see? Are we a diverse community? Maybe we better look at Charles Fillmore's definition of judgment. When we judge according to the appearance, according to the standard of the world, we judge from the viewpoint of human limitation. And thus we bind ourselves to the limited thoughts of the outer world. When we perceive the Christ within ourselves, we judge with righteous judgment. Only then are we able to recognize that same Christ light as what is in back of every appearance. So, when we look around, are we seeing the Christ light emanating from every person who's here today? It's a whole different perspective. It's a whole different way of looking at diversity. When I arrived here 3 years ago, we didn't have a diversity statement, so the board adopted one, and I didn't write it. It came from Unity Worldwide Ministries, and it says, "We believe that all people are created with sacred worth. Our ministries and outreaches are inclusive and open-minded, free from discrimination on the basis of race, gender, age, creed, religion, national origin, ethnicity, physical disability, and sexual orientation." And then this is my favorite sentence. "We recognize and honor the divine within is the one common denominator that we share on our human journey." Isn't that beautiful? I'm reminded of a children's story of a little boy, a little African-American boy who was sitting on the curb watching the balloon man fill balloons. And the balloon man that day was filling the balloons, tying them, and letting them go. And as they went off, that little boy would wave goodbye and smile. It brought him so much joy to see one color after another going off into that wild blue yonder. And after a while, the little boy asked the man, "Do black balloons rise up too?" And the man said, "Well, son, let's test it and see if that's true." So he got out a black balloon, he filled it, he tied the knot and let it go, and sure enough, there it went. And as it went off into the wild blue yonder, the man said, "You see, son, color has nothing to do with it. It's what's inside that counts." And that's what I feel that one common denominator is that's uniting us all. For the past 5 weeks, we've been taking a look at our core values, the 5 core values that Unity of Wilmington is holding, and deepening our understanding of how we apply them, how we use them in our lives, deepening our understanding of what they actually mean. I mean, what is inclusive community, and why has Reverend Mindy been talking so much about diversity? Well, let me show you the affirmation. Diversity is the lifeblood that nourishes our dynamic oneness. All are welcome here. Would you say that with me, please?
Diversity is the lifeblood that nourishes our dynamic oneness. All are welcome here.
Wow. All are welcome here. Our diversity is the lifeblood that nourishes us. At the end of the book of Matthew in 28:19, Jesus said, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations." He didn't say some nations. He didn't say some people. He said all peoples. All peoples, all ages, all children, all elders, all queers, all people that have who are differently disabled. Everybody. Go out and make disciples of everyone. Helping them, helping us all recognize that divinity, that Christ-like that's within each and every one of us. Another children's story is about a box of crayons. A box of crayons that was in a toy store. One day a little girl overheard the crayons in the box having a conversation. They had many things to say. "I don't like red," said yellow. Green said, "Neither do I, and no one here likes orange, but no one seems to know why." "We're a box of crayons that doesn't get along," said blue to all the others. "Something's wrong here, but I don't know what it is." Well, that little girl bought that box of crayons and took it home with her. On her table, she set up each crayon on end so that they could see what she was doing. They watched her as she colored with red and blue and green and black and white and orange and every color in between. They watched as green became the grass and blue became the sky. Yellow, of course, became the sun shining happily while white clouds drifted by. Colors changing as they touched, becoming something new. They watched the girl as she colored. They watched her until she was through. As the girl began to walk away, she heard a new conversation. "I do like red," said yellow. And green added, "So do I. Blue, you were terrific, so high up there in the sky." It's true that they were a box of crayons, each one unique. But when they got together, the picture was complete. I like this story on several levels. First of all, I got right off that each and every one of us is a crayon. We are all crayons. We might look different on the outside, but on the inside we have that same Christ, one denominator, that same one Christ-like. And then when we're available to see the gifts that we're bringing, we can see the gifts that others are bringing, and together how each one of our individual uniqueness contributes to creating the beautiful thing we call life. And finally, I really like how once we've gained that new, higher perspective, because we're seeing life through new eyes, once we gain that perspective, then we're truly available to live our mission, to live our core values, to live out that expansion of consciousness and that inspiration of personal transformation. There's a difference to me between a core value and an aspirational value. A core value is the one that we consider our guiding principles. It's the one that we go to without almost thinking about it. But an aspirational value is one that we see is important for the achievement of our mission. We're not fully embodied yet, but we want to be. We really want to be. And I think that's where we are as a community. We're somewhere in between, knowing that inclusive community is something that we truly want and need and desire to embody, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. We haven't quite made that leap. But how will we know? How will we know when we have? How will we know when we are in complete alignment with embracing inclusive community? How will we know when we're walking our talk? How will we know when we're living what we say we believe in? Well, there are 3 ways. Every week there's been 3 ways, I'm just saying. Embracing our differences, I work and play with others for the greater good. We're crayons, we get that. I smile and acknowledge others in a judgment-free manner. In other words, I acknowledge other people with righteous judgment. When I notice that in me, I'm seeing the Christ light in someone else, it's easy to smile. When I'm recognizing and feeling their compassion and their love and their kindness, the nice things that they've been doing or the different ways that they're serving the community, it's easy to smile. I think the biggest challenge is number 3. I challenge myself to interact with people and ideas outside my comfort zone. And I think it's a challenge for a couple of reasons. Number 1, if anybody has ever had any issue with codependency, this is one of the scariest things that we can do. Because as codependents, what we tend to do is challenge ourselves to be with other people and listen to their ideas, but it's not very long until our identity is completely wrapped up in their identity and their opinions have become our opinions. It's not a co-creative, balanced life. The other thing I think that makes the number 3 so challenging is we have an attachment to what is. We have an attachment to what has gone on in the past. We have a nostalgia for what was. We have an orthodoxy, actually, of nostalgia for what was. And when we become attached and we begin to glorify the past, and we begin to get stuck in the past, and we begin to say, well, I'm going to keep the status quo, but really we're trying to keep a hold of the past, then our vision becomes tunnel and our growth becomes stagnant. So I think this is where Unity of Wilmington is in that place between an aspiring value and a core value. And I think the way to make the leap or to make the bridge or to make that shift and move is in appreciation. Is in true appreciation. I hear you. I listen to you. I honor you. I'm excited about what you have to say. I like being with you. I'm not sure if I like being with you, but I'm willing to try it because you're new to me. I wonder how I can appreciate the surrounding and the community that I'm in moving forward. Moving forward. I have one last story, and I'm going to invite the choir to come up during the telling of it. And it's a story about a monastery that was way out in a very picturesque forest. But this monastery was so special and so wonderful that travelers would go out of their way to spend a few days there. For when they spent time there, they found that they were nourished. They found that they were supported. They found that they were listened to. They found that they were loved. They just felt good. But after many years, the people visiting became fewer and fewer and fewer. And the abbot was really beside himself because what he was noticing was that there were fewer and fewer visitors because there was so much animosity between the monks. And that anxious animosity was felt, whether it was heard or said by the visitors. Finally, one day, he was with his very good friend, the rabbi, and he said to the rabbi, I don't know what to do. And he began to pour his heart out. He began to tell his tale of woe. The rabbi listened very carefully, and he said, oh, I hear you. I hear that you're having a very hard time. Are you open to a suggestion? And the rabbi said, and the abbot said, absolutely, anything you have to say would help. So the rabbi sat back and said, I had a vision. And in this vision, I recognized that the Messiah was among you. The abbot was so excited, he ran back to the monastery. He couldn't wait to tell the monks. He said, I have good news. I have great news. I have the most amazing news. The Messiah is among us. And the monks just sat there in silence. And then they began to look at each other. Oh my gosh, is it you? Is it you? Is it you? And the abbot said, well, I know it's not me. So somewhere in and amongst you, there is a Messiah. Well, immediately, Brother Stephen started treating Brother Ivan just a little bit differently, because he felt guilty for the anger that he had felt and never brought up for forgiveness. And Brother John and Brother Lawrence began to defrost their iciness between them. They began to serve each other. They began to do kind things for each other. They began to listen to each other in a whole different way, because who knew? Were you the Messiah? Were you the Messiah? Are you the Messiah? Are you the Messiah? People started to come back, first one at a time and then two at a time, because when they went into the monastery for a retreat, they felt different when they came out. They felt lighter. They felt brighter. And then more and more people. And pretty soon the monastery was thriving. The monastery was an amazing Mecca for people to come to. Metaphysically, in the story, we are the monastery, we are the monks, we are the abbot, we are the rabbi, and we are the Messiah.